A reading from the Acts of the Apostles. Then certain individuals came down from Judea and were teaching the brothers, "Unless you are circumcised according to the custom of Moses, you cannot be saved." And after Paul and Barnabas had no small dissension and debate with them, Paul and Barnabas and some of the others were appointed to go up to Jerusalem to discuss this question with the apostles and the elders. So they were sent on their way by the church, and they passed through Phoenicia and Samaria, and they reported the conversion of the Gentiles and brought great joy to all the believers. When they came to Jerusalem, they were welcomed by the church and the apostles and the elders, and they reported all that God had done with them. But some believers who belonged to the sect of the Pharisees stood up and said, "It is necessary for them to be circumcised in order to keep the law of Moses." The apostles and the elders met together to consider this matter. The word of the Lord. I remember a story about a young woman who came to my church, an Episcopal church, I think the first one where I had been serving as a priest. And she had told me this moving story about belonging to one church and going and talking to the pastor there and saying, what do I need to do to be a welcome part of the community here? And the pastor had said, well, you need to believe A, B, C, and D. You need to do X, Y, and Z. And if you don't believe these things and do these things, then you're not welcome to be one of us. So she went to another church and approached that pastor there and said, I'm looking to be a part of a community somewhere. What do I need to do to be welcomed by you? And the pastor there had said, well, you need to do 1, 2, 3, 4, these things, and you need to believe these things or else you're not welcome here with us. And then she talks about going and visiting her first community that happened to be an Episcopal church. Not to say that we as Episcopalians are necessarily always better at this than other denominations. We're not always any better at this than any of us. But she was fortunate enough to have gone to a church where she bravely opened up her heart to them and said, I'm looking to be a part of a community. Would you take me in? What do I need to believe and to do in order to be welcome to be a part of your community? And the priest there simply said, you're welcome here. We'll so gladly have you here with us. Come, be a part of us. We would love to have you be here with us. And we're not going to try to tell you what you should believe and what you should do, but we'll walk the journey with you and try to figure out what will help you grow closer to God and closer to God's people around you. And even if at the end of the day we don't come to believe the same thing, I still believe you deserve to be welcome here. And that changed this woman's life. That changed this woman's life forever. She had never felt the kind of unconditional love she found in that church. And she furthermore dedicated her life toward trying to offer that same kind of radical, unconditional welcoming to everyone else who would come before her, to show them that if nowhere else, if everybody else out there were going to put conditions on you for your acceptance, that you had at least one place in your home that you could turn to where you knew you were welcome and loved and would not be turned away. Now, I very much hear that story in this Acts of the Apostles as the early church is wrestling with what do we need to ask of our people in order to have them be acceptable to us. And there were some people who obviously, who had been converted from in the Jewish tradition, had been looking for a Messiah and found their Messiah, thought logically that you need to become a good Jew before you can then become a good Christian. That's not unreasonable. There's a reason why they're wrestling with that question. And I am not for 1 minute going to try to tell anybody that there is no value in the Jewish laws and traditions, because they actually are deeply rooted and deeply valuable in that tradition. But there also is something to be said for being open to saying, you know what, we're not all going to approach our faith the same way. And some of us may approach it the way of the traditional Jewish way. Some of us may approach it the Gentile way. Some of us may come from a Catholic tradition or a Protestant tradition. Some of us may have been agnostic for years and years before we found our way. But I do believe this. I do believe that it is important that we acknowledge that we're all trying to figure this out the best way we can. And extending one another a little bit of unconditional compassion and love will never lead us astray. Amen.